Okay, so this is the group discussion, group number 2 for the grit book. We're gonna go ahead and start with all the questions. It's gonna be Roshman, then Matthew, then Hanzala, then Olivia, then Yulma, then Brian, and then I to go ahead and answer the questions. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so Roshman, how might entrepreneurs distinguish between beneficial preservance and harmful persistence with a failing business model or idea?
Okay, so for me, I feel like grit is good when you're still learning and seeing some progress. But if you're stuck, not getting customers or like ignoring feedback, it might be time to let go or change direction. And it is important to step back and be honest about what's working and what's not.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Let's go ahead, Matthew. Same question.
So I agree. I think there is a point where grit can turn into like tunnel vision.
Mhm.
And I think being gritty can be actually really good. But I also think going with them that entrepreneurs need to know when they have to adapt or stop doing something when they realize something isn't working. Because if you're just doing something over and over again the same and you don't get different results, you're wasting your time.
100%. Hanzala, do you want to go ahead and chime in?
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay. All right. Yulma, do you want to go ahead and go for it?
Yeah, so I kind of agree. So a trait of harmful perseverance is refusing to adapt. So it's important to pivot whenever something isn't working. Like they said, be honest with yourself. But when you are seeing growth, that's when it's important to like be gritty and like stick to it.
Yeah, 100%. Olivia, do you want to go for it?
Yeah. Yeah, I also agree. I think sometimes grit and like strong perseverance can sometimes maybe ignore like external or systematic issues. So sometimes I think it is good to like have grit when, things are going good, but sometimes to look at your external environment and adapt to those as well.
Yeah. All right. Miss Brian, go ahead.
Yeah. Just making sure y'all can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Personally, I think, whenever you're trying to distinguish between them and make sure that there's like not having harmful persistence towards that actual failing business model. I know a lot of times it's hard to determine like grit itself, where should you stop because it takes a long time to actually have a business like kind of succeed. So I think that personally it's just like every day, as long as you have the grit, but also make sure you're like kind of marking the little things that you're doing different or improving. That's when you kind of keep that like mentality and you keep it from like just leading towards a failing business. That's where you keep it separate.
Yeah. Yeah. Louis, we went ahead and started the discussion. I'm gonna go ahead and just repeat the question to you. How might entrepreneurs distinguish between beneficial preservance and harmful persistence with a failing business model or idea? Louis, can you hear me?
I don't think it'll
I'm
work.
gonna go ahead, just answer real quick. So I agree with all of you guys. Um, I do think that like grit doesn't always just mean like being stubborn, like to the point of self-destruction. It means also like being flexible enough to learn and adapt while still staying committed to your bigger vision. Um, I think Brian, I think you pointed it out, right? Like don't just keep on doing the same thing, um, and expect like a different answer, right? So I think that in that sense, that's what grit is, um, and it can be harmful. But yeah. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead with the second question. We're gonna just go right back to the top with Rashman. So how does Duckworth's concept of deliberate practice apply to entrepreneurship, which requires mastery across multiple domains rather than specialized expertise in one area?
Okay, so when you look at entrepreneurs as a whole, they need a lot of practice for different skills like marketing, pitching, or like managing a team. So I would say deliberate practice means working on one skill at a time with focus and feedback, not just staying busy. It's about improving with a plan and not just doing like random tasks.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go ahead with Matthew. Same question.
So I agree. I think the Duckworth's idea of deliberate, I think it fits action entrepreneurship really well. I think, um, I think every entrepreneur they have their talents, but I don't think they're a master in everything. I think they can break down different skills, whether it's like sales, negotiating, or managing people. And I think they can slowly improve them one at a time with some effort and if they focus. I think it's about doing things like he's like on purpose with feedback, constructive criticism, and not just repeating them over and over again.
Yeah, I think just to like chime in on that, right? Like that's why different entrepreneurs go into different businesses, right? Like they invest into different businesses because they
Mhm.
all don't have the same exact skills.
Mhm.
Um, Hanzala, go ahead.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's you have to.
We can't
Hanzala,
really hear you.
I don't think we can hear you, Hanzala.
Can you hear me?
Still, it's
Connect to
still
something
low.
else.
I think he was probably trying to respond to the first question too, but we couldn't really hear it.
Can
Do you
you
want
hear
to
me?
try reading real quick? I'm
Hello?
coming back. There we go.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hey,
Yeah,
real
go for
quick,
it.
can y'all hear me?
Okay, yeah, I sorry, I was responding to the
Mhm.
first question
Let's
too. I
we can hear
couldn't.
you.
But yeah, honestly, I think still applies. You just have to approach every skill differently, because entrepreneurs do wear a lot of hats, and then you still have to break down things differently in each skill. You can't just like, focus one thing at a time, master one thing at a time. That's how I would like to say.
For sure. Olivia, do you want to go for it?
Yeah. I think deliberate practice is really good for entrepreneurs too because it's more of a purposeful and like focused practice. And, purpose is a big motivator for grit too. So I think it kind of goes hand in hand with that.
Yeah. And Yoma, go for it.
Yeah, so I want to hit that same point. It's not about doing everything perfectly because you really can't. Like, you're bound to kind of fall in one area. So, focusing on breaking it down into smaller parts, so you're able to perfect things one at a time. I think that's a better approach.
For sure. Um,
I think it's
Brian.
me. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I saw somewhere that another thing about like the whole idea of deliberate practices that kind of had to do. Another part of it was actually having transferable skills. Like even if you're focusing on more so one domain than all simultaneously, you need to have transferable skills that can go from that one that you're really locked in on into other ones. So that way it keeps building on it. So even if you're locked in on one specific kind of practice and skill, you
Mhm.
can just easily kind of build it onto other ones and kind of stack them. And that's more so the deliberate practice because it's one with intent for multiple or many.
For sure. Lewis.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I
I
got
didn't
you. No
hear the
problem.
question that you
It's all
asked
good.
or that y'all asked.
So I'm gonna go ahead and hit you with the first question and also with the second question, just so you can get the participation on there. The first question is, how might entrepreneurs distinguish between beneficial perseverance and harmful persistence with a failing business model or idea?
Uh, I mean, I feel like, if it's a failing business model idea, but and I guess in their heart, knowing it's gonna fail, but continuously wanting to preserve and, try to make it succeed, that at the end of the day, you're really just setting yourself up for failure.
Mhm.
If I guess I feel like in a way, everyone deep down inside you, like when something's not going to go right. You kind of
Yeah,
get like a sense of it. But at the same time, if you want to, like, like we said in the question, have that perseverance and just to continuously work for it. It's like, what are you working for if it's
yeah,
failing? At a certain point, you got to be able to know when to punt and move on and build off of that. That situation.
for sure. I'm gonna hit you with the second question.
Mhm.
So how does Duckworth's concept of deliberate practice apply to entrepreneurship, which requires mastery across multiple domains rather than specialized expertise in one area?
Um, to be honest with you, I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
Because it's a tool, it's a multi-tool thing. So I guess you can apply it to different to different areas, to different things, you know. But
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, man.
So I'm gonna just go ahead, just finish it off in the second question. Um, I think deliberate practice in this context, it means breaking down those big roles into specific skills like pitching, negotiating, like financial forecasting, and then purposely improving each one of those, right? And it's not about doing a million things at once, but about intentionally working on one thing at a time and being honest about where you need to grow, which I think all of us said, right? Like in the sense that you want to hone in on one thing. Let's go ahead with the third question. What do you think are the best strategies that entrepreneurs can use to build teams and cultivate a culture of grit? Rashman.
Okay, so for me, a good strategy would be to hire people who care about the mission and don't give up easily. People who can like set a good example, reward effort, and talk openly about failures and how to learn from them. A
Yeah,
team with grit supports each other and keeps going. And even when I would say things get hard.
sure. Matt, you want to go ahead and jump on that?
So totally backing what you said about having people who are behind the mission. I think some businesses don't have clear missions, and I think having a clear mission really helps. I think people like to know why they're doing what they're doing. And so if you have a clear mission, especially like a mission statement, I think that's a lot of like every business has one now. Um, Having a mission statement or a mission where people know why they're doing what they're doing, I think it helps them stick with you through the not only the ups but also the downs to the difficult times.
Yeah. Hanzala, if you want to go ahead and chime in.
Yeah, I think it starts with the people you bring in. You want people who have shown commitment and like consistency, not just talent on paper. And then after that, it's about like setting the tone in. If you're someone who pushes through challenges and keeps learning from setbacks, maybe the team sees that. So also creating the environment where effort is recognized, not just the outcomes. I think it helps encourage that kind of mindset across the board.
Yeah. Yeah. Olivia, you want to go for it?
Yeah. I agree with Matthew about the mission statement. I think that's a really important thing to help drive a team together and build grit and like having a purpose for like your business or whatever your team is pursuing. If people are engaged and passionate about it, I think that's a huge contributor to having grit in your team.
Yeah. Yeah. Brian, go for it.
Personally, I think one of the biggest things that when it comes like for strategies of what entrepreneurs should be doing to build teams and really like cultivate that grit, it has to do a lot with the kind of leadership position that they themselves play in it. Like for example, I've had my own like kind of company, their leadership positions, they didn't really have somebody that was in good control. Like they didn't stand up and they didn't really like try to involve everybody in the team, but also show that like presence, that makes them feel like they're being led.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's really important. You have to have, if not one person at the top who's like really leading, you need to have structures that actually help build that leadership for everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yoma, you want to go for it?
Yes. So I think it's important to lead by example as like a leader yourself and be transparent with your team. So even when things aren't like going good, you need to be transparent and that way you give them the opportunity to show you like how they persevere. And then if
Mhm.
you do that too, they can mirror you as
Yeah.
well.
And Lewis, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, I agree with Brian and Yulma, and also but tying it into Roshman and everyone else's point, because I feel like if you bring it, if you're going off of kind of like how the boss or manager or whoever else is in the higher up acts, um, people under them, they're gonna see that too, and then it's gonna motivate them to want to work hard, have that grit, like we've been saying, and so I think it starts with leadership, but it also goes into, like we said, who's like who you bring on and who you're working with and things like that.
Yeah.
Because if you're kind of going into an environment where everyone's kind of sluggish, nobody really cares, it's going to reflect on how employees work from day to day too, and kind of how like operations are going to be ran. So I just think it's like hand in hand that you need strong leadership, and then who you're bringing into to kind of mirror that.
For sure. Yeah. For me, like, I agree with Rosh. I agree with all of you guys, but I agree with Roshman and Brian all the way. Um, when Roshman was talking about hiring people and how Brian was talking about leaders, right? Like, if we don't have one without the other, we can't lead a group of people that are unmotivated, and that starts with hiring processes. And we can't hire great people and then just unlead them, right? And like Brian was saying, like, it takes a group of leaders to go ahead and cultivate that culture of grit. Um, and so I've been part of the corporate world, right? And you can share like, leaders can share their own challenges and how they overcame them, and then they can also recognize progress from their employees to keep them motivated. Let's go ahead with the next question. So Duckworth emphasizes deliberate practice and not mere repetition. What sub-skill critical to your own goals would you design a deliberate practice regimen for?
So
Rush.
yes. So a practice regimen that I would come up with is kind of like public speaking. I'd practice by, recording myself, getting feedback, and studying other great speakers. A good example is like right now, like how I'm talking in front of you guys. Any sort of feedback from you guys would be really, really good. Like body language or tone or my way of speaking. So I guess that is something that is really important.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Matthew, you want to go for it?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think mine would be public speaking or like communication too. For me, I work at my church. I'm a youth pastor assistant, and I speak in front of 50 plus people, and it's something I feel you have to actively work on. And feel like for an entrepreneur, especially if you have a business, you have to sell your product, whatever that is. Otherwise, your business is going to blow. I think that's something everyone needs. And I think a way for like public speaking to get better, what Rashman said is he records himself and listens back to it. I think doing that or asking other people or presenting in front of other people and asking like, hey, what did you think? What were my strengths, what were my weaknesses, stuff like that.
Yep. Hanzo, you want to take it?
Yeah, for me, I would also say like speaking, but like more so in a way that it's also like entrepreneurship related. So like pitching and presenting the ideas in as well. So if I'm like in a business setting, I'm selling my product in while also doing like speaking confidently, publicly speaking, and then also pitching and presenting my idea properly in a way that's persuasive. So I think that's also something I would be working on consistently to improve.
Sure. Olivia, you want to chime in on that?
Yeah. I think for me personally, writing is a big thing for me. And so like applying deliberate practice to that would be like staying consistent and like getting out of your comfort zone and like seeking feedback from other people and like being purposeful with like for me what I'm doing. So like having a purpose every day and dedicating myself to that.
Yolima, you want to go for it?
Yes, so I would say persuasive speaking, so getting people on board with your idea, because this can be really beneficial if you're a leader and also if you're working under someone, because you're always going to need to learn to advocate for yourself and get people on board with new ideas.
Um, Good answer. So, Brian, go for it.
Yeah. Actually, I'm kind of on board with Olivia and Yulma. It's more so for me. I think the sub skill kind of has to be with journalism. You have to you basically journalism and routine. Like you have to write down what you want for the day, maybe even the day before, have it all planned out. Because at the end of the day, your routines build your habits build your life. So if you want that sub skill, that practice regimen, I think
Benjamin, yep.
you need to have some type of journaling, some type of tracking and measuring yourself.
Yeah. Lewis, go for it.
I think the one that I feel like you either have this or you don't, is preparation and organization.
Yeah.
And that's something that, like in my life, I personally need to work on. So I don't even know how you can work on that other than actually just doing it, like in the action. And, whether it be like studying for a test or a quiz or, or like preparing for this or work or, just even having like a neat desk at home or something simple like that. I think it's just something, that I wouldn't say I struggled with it, but it's definitely some things that I could have, done better in,
Mhm.
whether just, being a little earlier for something or, or getting a
Yeah.
higher test or higher grade on a test, things like that,
Mhm.
just to where I can improve myself over something simple, just like being prepared and organized and ready for whatever.
Right. Yeah. So to wrap it up, right? I think that we all kind of pinpointed it, like you said, Lewis, organizing. Matthew, I think you said a little bit about it, like um, managing and everything, multiple projects and stuff. But I think that we didn't put a term to it. And I think that term is time management, right? Um, like I worked with that corporate company, and multiple times did we have like 3, 4 projects to manage, right? Like an excellent thing would be like a Gantt chart. You guys said journaling, right? Like I think all of our leaders had a little notebook that we would keep, whether it be a calendar or whether it be a journal that's blank for them to write down on, right? So I would say focusing on time managing would be my answer to that question. Um, let's go ahead with this fifth question. Um, do you think Duckworth's book glamorizes perseverance and grit? Are there any downsides that come with the grit mindset? I think this is kind of a little bit more to the first question too, but Rashman, you got it.
Okay, so I would say yes. Grade does come with a lot of downsides.
Mhm.
The book can sometimes make it feel like grit is the solution to everything, but it's clearly not. In real life, constantly pushing yourself without taking breaks or being ignorant about other options could backfire. You might burn out or waste time on something that's probably not working for you.
Right.
Grit is valuable, but it should be balanced off with, like, say, self-awareness. And sometimes the smartest thing you can do is probably step back, change your approach, and walk away if it's not worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. Matthew, you want to go ahead and chime in on that one?
Yeah, I'll try. He kind of took word for word what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Um, I think there are some downsides with grit. I think grit can be like very powerful, but I think it can also make people like kind of scared to quit or change the direction. And I feel like sometimes it can do more harm than good. I think if people can know when to stop, I think that's part of being smart with it. If you can know when to stop doing something instead of just self-sabotaging.
I see. Hanzo, you want to take it over?
Yeah, I mean, I would go with their answers as well. It's like, while it's important to be like, being having that grit mentality, it's also important that you should not make it centered around everything because there's a risk to it. Like, for example, like this, while I was reading that, I found like a good example to it. It's like Nintendo started as like a playing cards game and then it moved on to like video game industry. So obviously, like they had to like, switch up because if they were still playing cards, they wouldn't be as big as they are today. So, yeah, grit is something that you should have, but at the same time, it's kind of should adjust to it.
Yeah. Olivia, you want to go for it?
Yeah. Kind of, I think I said something similar for the first question, but like how sometimes grit and like perseverance can sometimes ignore like systematic issues. And I think it's important to like highlight that or point that out before saying that like your success relies on purely having grit or perseverance. And kind of like what everyone else said, like I think it's important to know when to stop. And if something's not working out, then it's just best to move on or change the course of action.
Yeah. Yep. Yilma, you want to go for it?
Yes, so I do think that it is a little bit glamorized in the book, grit, but I think that's because it is like a really important like attribute to have, especially if you want to succeed at something that's really, really hard. If you're someone that if you've ever like taken on too many responsibilities or you've like overwhelmed yourself with work, you might like relate to that. Like there are times where you do have to double down and like see things through. It's not like healthy to do it like all the time, but there are times I think just kind of to play devil's advocate to what y'all are saying. Sometimes it is important to really push through and see things to the end, even if it's like hard.
Yeah, no, for sure. Brian, go for it.
Hmm. Uh, I also thought it was a little bit glamorized in the book. I noticed because there's a lot of, I guess there's more so direct focus on grit and the other part that was perseverance. But I also did notice that it kind of lacked context. It kind of lacked perspective. It's
Yeah,
just really focused in and honed on it, which of course we all know is if you're looking at everything from a bigger picture and then you zone in too far, it's not going to end well because you need to put everything in it into perspective. Along with that other side of the question that was downsides that come with grit.
hmm
Yeah, I agree. There is a lot of downsides that come with it because, there's levels to it. And of course, when you go too far into it, it can be detrimental in terms of like taking care of yourself. You can really double down on your work. And because of that, we're not like avatars in a game, like, leveling up and stuff. You need to
yeah,
maintain your body, maintain your health, and
for
that
sure.
goes for everything. So yeah, I know it
Lewis,
gets pretty bad.
nah, for sure. Um, Lewis, go for it.
I think it's like kind of like what Olivia said. Like I think I kind of said this in my on the first question too.
hmm
It's like you should always have grit and confidence in yourself and your ideas, and always want to work hard. Not give anything less than 100%. But
hmm
if and it's like the Nintendo example. If it's if it's a bad idea, not say bad idea, but if it's failing, and it's not going in the direction that you want it to go, or what you hoped it would have gone to,
hmm
don't hold on to something that's not worth your time. Like Brian was saying, worth that stress, that the mental standpoint of going, putting everything you have into something that's not going to return everything back.
Yeah,
You got to know when to move on, when to wrap it up. Go back to the drawing board, figure it out. Other than risk putting everything you have on something that's not even going to return.
yeah, yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap that up, right? Yeah, now that I'm going through 5 questions with you guys and going last on every question, it's really hard to follow up your guys' act. But I did write something down on this question that I think is different, right? So I think sometimes quitting or changing course is actually the smartest, grittiest thing you can do, right? Um, like kind of how Yomer was saying, right? Don't see the idea all the way through, right? You have to be grit and be preserved. And a thing that you can challenge yourself with, right, is whenever you're going into an entrepreneurship battle, you bring someone that you trust with you, right? And you kind of have them play the devil's advocate, kind of how you were saying that, oh no, keep on going through with the idea, keep on going through with the idea, and then you go ahead and say like, oh, there's so many downsides in this idea, right? And you guys can always make a pros and cons list on that idea. So I think grit is important. I do think that grit is kind of glamorized in the book, but it's kind of hard to not glamorize it when the book's title is called Grit. So that's my piece on that question. Let's go ahead and push through. Number 6, right? Do you think passion is something you discover, develop, or both?
Okay, for me, I feel like it's both. And I feel like this comes in two ways. One would be naturally, and one is when you learn it with like persistence. Sometimes you could discover passion by trying something new. For me, something that came naturally was growing up. I got passionate about cars and video games, and I kind of didn't know it up until I sat behind the steering wheel or like held the controller in my hand, and that just took off, And I'm really passionate about cars and video games. But there are some other passions that I learned over time that it took a while. It took a while for me to learn and get better at. And it doesn't happen overnight. It would be something like effort and consistency. Something like that would be for me is like gym. Like I was never consistent or, well, I never cared about gym growing up. but I do now. And yeah, for me, I feel like it's also about finding passion and building it as well.
Great to hear. Matt, you wanna go ahead and jump on that one?
So I struggled with this question because I didn't know for me if it was passion. I thought at first passion is something you develop, but then I'm kind of now leaning towards both. Following what Rockford said, I think when you try new things, that can really catch your interest, and I think sometimes you can catch it fast. But I feel like real passion really takes time and effort to grow. You know, I feel like you can take some of the world's greatest athletes, like they kicked the soccer ball for the first time, and that caught their interest. But then I feel like the real passion for the sport really had to grow and take some time. I also feel like you don't just wake up obsessed with something. I feel like you can't. I feel like something has to get your interest, and then you build off of that.
For sure.
Yeah, Hanzo, you wanna go for it?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, same thing. Like it's both for me. You kind of find something that like you kind of are interested in along the road in your life, but at the same time, like some things come with time and effort. Like he said with the gym example, like that's exactly how I was gonna like explain it. It's really like accurate because sometimes you see progress and then you get more invested into it. So
Yeah.
that's something that goes into both ways, I guess.
Sure. Olivia, you wanna go for it?
Yeah, I also agree. I think it's definitely both. Kind of like Matthew said, I don't think you wake up just all of a sudden passionate about something. But I think a big part of it is discovering, like, I'm a huge reader, but I used to hate reading until I had taken a specific class in like middle school, and that kind of sparked my interest in it. And then obviously it developed over time, and then you kind of develop a passion for it. But I think it's definitely a mix of both.
Yolima, you wanna go for it?
Yes, so I think it's both, but I think it can also depend on the person. Like there are people that they just like, for example, pick up like an instrument and they're instantly like all about it. But personally, I have had to develop like a passion for things. Like whenever I was like younger, I had an interest in skincare. And then following that, I went to school for it. I worked for like aesthetic companies since then. So I've gotten to develop that passion by learning like the ins and outs of that industry and becoming like more of an expert on it. So I wouldn't say like I was passionate from the beginning. Like I was just interested in it and then I developed it into a passion.
Yeah. Brian.
Yeah, I also think it's passion, something that you both discover and develop, of course. Honestly, it's even some things that you like relearn over time that you didn't realize were actually some sort of passion, like I guess you could say like the little things in life, you go back when you're growing up, you don't think about it too deeply, but as you get older and you need to like kind of step back a bit, even things like nature, you just in the morning when you've been out like inside all day, you go outside, you get some fresh air, go for a walk. Of course, there's always that little theory too. Once you turn 25, somehow you just develop a running kind of it's like the little things. So I think it's both, You discover it, of course, you relearn it and you develop it.
Lewis, you wanna go for it?
I definitely think it's both. Going off of what Matthew said, because he said something about athletes, this kind of it popped in my mind. I don't know if y'all are big into boxing or follow it, but last night there was a main event card, and one of the fighters on the card, his name's Arnold Barboza. In high school, he was 200 pounds, 200 pounds plus, trying to play football, and then I guess didn't work out for whatever reason, and now he's 33 years old. You're high school, you're 18 years old. Now he's 33 years old, weighing 144 pounds. So I think that's something that you definitely learn, because boxing, I think, is a very passionate sport. It's a very difficult sport too to train in, and to go from 200 plus pounds to down to 144. It's not an easy thing, especially at a later age, at 18, early 20s. So that's why I just feel like it's both, because you're passionate about one thing, and then you pick up something else and realize it probably was a better option to lose the weight and to go that route. But that's why I just think it's both, just for that reason. He wanted to go one way, didn't see it, put on some gloves, and then went the other way, and it worked out. So
Yeah, I think that everyone had great answers. For me personally, like I think it's both. I think everyone said it was both, right? I think that for everyone's different, and I think that some people stumble upon something that they love like really early on. I think that you know passion kind of drives the developing factor, right? Um, and it's important for you to, as an early age, like a lot of people get it from their siblings, a lot of people get their passions from their parents. Some people, like Yoma was saying, right? Like some people pick up instruments right then and there. Some people pick up a crayons, like, yeah, I can draw perfectly. But passion kind of drives the developing factor, which then drives you to become a master at your craft, right? Um, and that's the most important thing, is to become a master at your craft. No one wants to be amateur at anything that they do. Everyone wants to be the best at what they do. So that's what I would say on that question. Let's go ahead and push through. We are on good timing, by the way. Started recording at 11:15. 11:50 is at where we're at right now. So let me go ahead and put the next question. So if you guys, did I skip a question? No, I didn't. If you were hiring someone for a role within your company, how might you determine their grittiness? Would you count this more than talent in the field, Rashman?
Okay, so when I read this question, the first thing that came to my head was hardship. That's the first thing I would ask somebody, because growing up, or like, as you go out through life, you do face hardships, and I look for signs I look for signs as to how they dealt with that situation, how they how they dealt with the challenges, and I'd kind of value grit more than talent at that point. Talent does help, but if that person gave up easily, it wouldn't matter, because grit shows that through the hardship, that person kept going.
Yeah, there you go. Matthew, you want to go for it?
So if I were hiring someone for my role to come in, I think I'd probably ask them about a time they failed and they kept going. I personally believe, I think everyone's talented in their own ways. Everyone has different talents, but I think grit is what would like really tell me that they'll keep learning and not just give up when things get tough. Because no one's perfect. No matter how good you are at something, everyone messes up. The best in the world messed up at what they're best at times. It's how they got there.
Yeah, it's a great answer. Hanzala, you want to go for it?
Yeah, I mean, I would be like going forward with asking questions about how they handle obstacles and how do they deal with it. I'm pretty much everybody's, if you've been through a job interview, these kind of questions they ask you. It's pretty normal for companies to ask you. But I think what matters is that when it comes to like doing it actually in person, something how Oracle does it. I don't know if you guys ever have done it, but they actually put the work down and they make you go through some crazy stuff, and then they decide if they want to keep you or not. That's the reason why they do it. So they put you with a lot of workload on your head as you're starting off, just to see how will you be able to handle it. If you can't handle it, they give you the option to leave. But if you can handle it, the work goes easy from their own. So that's something that they do for that type of stuff, for grit specifically.
Olivia, you want to chime in on that one?
Yeah, I think to like see or like measure someone's grittiness is one, like seeing, like contacting people that they know, like whenever you put like on a resume, like people of contact, like getting feedback on what they think and how they were a good worker. Or also, I work at a restaurant, so a lot of times they'll have people come in and stage, so you can see like how they work and just kind of like a practice run, so you can kind of see how they work in an environment, how they handle problems and conflict and stuff like that.
Yeah. The next one is Yoma.
Yes.
take it over?
So to hire someone that shows grit, I think something important is like to look for someone that has like non-traditional like path experience, or if you are able to see that someone made a pivot somewhere in their career to like a different industry. I think that's like a really good indicator of someone that like has that perseverance. If you're able to spot that like difference. That's also why I believe like people hiring people is really important. I'm not sure that like AI has caught on to that yet.
Yeah. I definitely feel that about the AI part. Brian, you want to go for it?
Yeah. I like that idea too, honestly. The whole concept of people actually hiring people and not just, people hiring a skill set or just hiring like, the big fancy resumes. Because honestly, that's all it is now. It's just how does your resume look? Um, and personally, I like the idea of kind of going through a trial run or just really telling them where they face like the hardship because it's it's the biggest thing. You never know what happened in somebody's life. So when it comes to would you take it as would you count this more than a talent in the field? I think I would because, every day somebody chooses they want to do something different and that can even go for like switching fields. So I think sometimes bringing somebody in from a completely different field is the biggest thing. That's like the most you could get out of someone because if you're hiring somebody that's already kind of in the field, they like say like 20 years, whatever, in that location, it's always changing. So 20 years, you have a lot of experience, but you also coming from a different industry gives different perspective.
Yeah, Lewis, you want to go ahead and take this one over?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Yulma and Brian's points. I want to know the person. I want to know the person I'm hiring. Who or what she's about, and how they think about things. Or especially when times are getting tough. And what Yulma said, if a person has different experiences in different fields, or made a career switch, I think all of that just reflects grittiness. It shows, you're not afraid to take a risk. You're not afraid to do what you think is right for yourself. So, I yeah, that's where I stand. I just want to know the person, know who I'm going to tie myself, with, and who I'm going to, trust to work with, and so yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So just to wrap it up, I think everyone had great answers. What I would say about grittiness in the hiring perspective, right, is I would definitely push it more than talent. I think the way that you look at a person in terms of are they ready to like learn more, right? Can they push themselves even further? There's a reason why college athletes, college football players don't make it to the NFL. There's a reason why high school football players don't make it to college. Like every college D1 coach will always tell their athletes, can you learn, right? It's not about the talent. Everyone has talent. It's about whether you can continue to learn. And that's based on scenario-based questions, right? Like, how would you deal in this when it comes to hiring review? I think Olivia pointed out and Yoma pointed out in resumes, right? Did this person jump from this this job to this job to this job and had 4 jobs in the last 3 months? That's not something good on a resume, right? Did this person stick through one company and have 4 different promotions? That shows grittiness, right? So you can see grittiness on a resume. You can see where a person might have quit way too soon, things of that nature. And then you can ultimately get the most important questions through scenario-based questions, which everyone kind of pointed out, especially Hans with Oracle. But yeah, that would be my answer, right? The meeting's going to end in 2 minutes. I'm going to create another meeting, so I want all you guys to join on that one. But let me go ahead and end this recording, and then I'll start the new recording, okay? All right, we're in part 2 of the Grit Group 2. We're just going to wrap up with the last question, which is essentially just to share your rating of the book, 1 to 10, obviously 10 being the best. So, Rashman, if you want to go for it.
Okay, so I would give the book a 7 out of 10. I feel like it was a great book, touched on importance of effort and consistency, but over time. But I just don't like how I focus too much on grit as the only answer. And yeah.
Awesome. Matthew, you want to jump in?
I'd give it around an 8, maybe an 8.5. My biggest takeaway was that it made me really think differently about how success really works over time. But backing off what Rashman just said, I feel like it was so much about grit, which it is about, but I feel like it could have been more about like when it's okay to quit or change direction, do something else.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that 100%. Hanzo, you want to go for it? Oh, Hanzo, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
It's like that with me. Okay. I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10 because it did give me new ideas on how about perseverance and long-term success, but I think it should also go over like when to not persist with the same thing. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Totally agree. Olivia, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I'd also probably give it like a 7. I liked that it talked about grit and perseverance because it is a big thing for success, but I feel like it would have been nicer to expand on different ideas too.
Yeah. Who's next? Yoma?
I'd give it an 8 out of 10. I like the concept, and I also like that it makes you like question the author's perspective. Like y'all said, like question like how important is grit since it's like the basis of the book. But yeah, I liked it. I'll give it an 8.
Nice. Yeah. Brian, you
I'll
want to go
do.
for it?
Yeah, I do a 7. I personally also just, it's a lot of information that you kind of know, but also just reminder, refresher.
Yeah.
It's cool. 7.
Louis, you want to go for it?
Yeah, I'll give it a 7 too. Like Brian said, it's kind of a lot of things that you kind of, I don't want to say common knowledge, but you already kind of got an idea about it, and it doesn't really, or at least in my opinion, and I think like other people said, it doesn't really tell you how to like mix grit kind of in with like knowing when to pivot and things like that, but like like it was said, like it's the name of the book, so obviously the author's gonna try to use as many points as she can or whatever to write about grit. But
Yeah.
I mean, I give it a cool 7. I mean, it wasn't like an awesome read, but it was all right.
Yeah. For me personally, I'll probably give it a 7.5 as well. I think exactly like how you guys are saying, if it gave more of detailed on when to quit, but obviously that would be running against the concept of the whole book, right? Like you can't say grit, and then, hey, this
Yeah.
is when to quit. But I do think it was a good read. I think it's good for people with kind of like low confidence in themselves, right? Like if you're struggling with self-confidence and like people have great ideas all the time, right? And they just don't want to push it out there because they have low confidence in their idea. So I think for people like that, it's definitely a great read, and I'll push people like that struggle with self-confidence to read the book. But yeah. Okay, so this is going to be ending our group discussion and ending our semester. So if everyone just wants to wave bye to the professor real quick, Professor
But
Kelly.
Hey.
All right, go ahead. All right, bye-bye. All right, we're in part 2 of the Grit Group 2. We're just going to wrap up with the last question, which is essentially just to share your rating of the book, 1 to 10, obviously 10 being the best. So Rashman, if you want to go for it.
Okay, so I would give the book a 7 out of 10. I feel like it was a great book, touched on importance of effort and consistency, but over time. But I just don't like how I focus too much on grit as the only answer. And yeah,
Awesome. Matthew, you want to jump in?
I'd give it around an 8, maybe an 8.5. My biggest takeaway was that it made me really think differently about how success really works over time. But backing off what Rashman just said, I feel like it was so much about grit, which it is about, but I feel like it could have been more about like when it's okay to quit or change direction, do something else.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that 100%. Hanzo, you want to go for it? Oh, Hanzo, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
It's like that with me. Okay. I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10 because it did give me new ideas on how about perseverance and long-term success, but I think it should also go over like when to not persist with the same thing. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Totally agree. Olivia, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I'd also probably give it like a 7. I liked that it talked about grit and perseverance because it is a big thing for success, but I feel like it would have been nicer to expand on different ideas too.
Yeah. Who's next? Yoma?
I'd give it an 8 out of 10. I like the concept, and I also like that it makes you like question the author's perspective. Like y'all said, like question like how important is grit since it's like the basis of the book. But yeah, I liked it. I'll give it an 8.
Nice. Yeah. Brian, you
I'll
want to go
do,
for it?
yeah, I do a 7. I personally also just, you know, it's a lot of information that you kind of know, but also just reminder, refresher.
Yeah.
It's cool. 7.
Lewis, you want to go for it?
Yeah, I'll give it a 7 too. Like Brian said, it's kind of a lot of things that you kind of, I don't want to say common knowledge, but you already kind of got an idea about it, and it doesn't really, or at least in my opinion, and I think like other people said, it doesn't really tell you how to like mix grit kind of in with, like knowing when to pivot and things like that, but like like it was said, like it's the name of the book, so obviously the author's gonna try to use as many points as she can or whatever to write about grit. But
Yeah.
I mean, I give it a cool 7. I mean, it wasn't like an awesome read, but it was all right.
Yeah. For me personally, I'll probably give it a 7.5 as well. I think exactly like how you guys are saying, if it gave more of detail on when to quit, but obviously that would be running against the concept of the whole book, right? Like you can't say grit, and then, hey, this is when to quit. But I do think it was a good read. I think it's good for people with kind of like low confidence in themselves, right? Like if you're struggling with self-confidence and like people have great ideas all the time, right? And they just don't want to push it out there because they have low confidence in their idea. So I think for people like that, it's definitely a great read, and I'll push people like that struggle with self-confidence to read the book. But yeah. Okay, so this is going to be ending our group discussion and ending our semester. So if everyone just wants to wave bye to the professor real quick, Professor
But
Kelly. All
Right.
right, go ahead. All right, bye-bye.